some real expertise for those of you who might be thinking about buying a classic car. And we'll start by asking you guys a question. So, just to the audience, so hands up those of you who've got a classic car. So yeah, quite a few. So this is very much for those of you who might not have a classic car, maybe think about getting one for the first time. It's a real sort of deep dive into how, what the best way of doing it is, and obviously the Matthewsons, they've done it before. They've had their hands burn on some cars. They've had some great successes with others. So let's talk through the hows of how that happened. So we'll start with you guys were selling cars yesterday, obviously, in the show's live auction. Were there any sort of particular success stories, or ones that you thought might have done a bit better or more, or not as well as you thought?
Success story. No, I think they all finished off around where we expected, David. I think, as I said yesterday, I have to obviously say it again because not everyone was here yesterday, were they? But the industry has changed so much in the last few months, so we've had to realign everything. So no, I think we're about where we should be. Yeah, I think we should.
And that's interesting. You should talk about sort of the industry realigning. Is that prices or the way people are buying?
Yes, values, prices. Yeah. So we talk about COVID, don't we, and the problems that brought from out to our industry. It brought silly prices for whatever reasons, loads of different reasons, obviously. But prices just went crazy, and there was obviously going to be a day of reckoning, and it came in a very short space last year. So in October, November last year, just before Christmas, for whatever reason again, all of a sudden we were witnessing quite a drop. So the market, the industry witnessed a drop in general of around 20%, I would think. There's the odd unicorn that stayed up there, and some of the really exotic stuff. But for what we did, we just did it, the affordable, everyday, enjoyable type classics. There was a fair old bump. Yeah.
And certainly one of the things I've seen is the cost of living crisis has been cited as part of that. I mean, how much do you guys think that that's had an impact on sort of people's household bills? Has that had an impact on what people are prepared to pay for classic cars?
Yeah, well, I think we only have so much money for leisure, and classic cars fall into the leisure bracket, really, don't they? So when things are good, you tend to splash out a little more on your hobby and your leisure time, don't you? And then when things are a little more difficult, you got to rein yourself in a bit, and therefore I think that has an effect on values. It's just how it goes, isn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've heard it on good authority that it's going to be law. You've got to buy a classic car, so you better get yourself ready for it. But I'll tell you one thing for sure, and I'll stand by this to me dying day. If you want to save the planet, buy a classic car. Don't buy what they're telling you to buy now, out the electric rubbish and all the rest of it. Get yourself a classic car. It's far less damaging than what's being made. I'm right, aren't I? Yeah. I'm right. You're dead right. There's no arguing about it. I don't know how they're trying to think they're going to hoodwink you all, because you're not stupid. No. Sooner or later you're going to realise that this electric stuff doesn't work, ain't going to work. Nothing's going to work until we make our fuel, man-made fuel, and then it's going to be internal combustion engine again. Yeah. So there you go, that's my thoughts.
Yeah, it is the ultimate form of recycling, really, isn't it, classic cars? Because all of that initial emissions from making the car, that's all been offset years ago. And obviously, when you do drive a classic car, you can also carbon balance your emissions as well. There are various schemes that you can do to do that. So it's actually a very eco-friendly hobby.
Yeah. Well, it is. I mean, you look at the stuff that's on the field today. I mean, there's a lot of modernish stuff here, fair enough, you've got to allow for that. But there's like Austin Cambridges out there that were built all them years ago, and all the years they've been running them, there haven't been any problems on the planet at all. They haven't got to be recycled, and if they are ever recycled, like this stupid scrappage scheme, another ridiculous idea, it's just a vote-winning thing, then basically you can actually reuse them. Half of the modern stuff and that you can't reuse, can you? Hell of a job to get rid of the rotten stuff. So no, stick with what we got, definitely. We've seen the better days on car production, I can assure you that.
Here's a big one for you. So one of the stories we've been reporting on quite a lot in Classic Car Weekly is tax exemption. So some of you in the audience might be aware that when a car reaches 40 years old, it's you no longer have to pay road tax for it, and that's obviously been quite a big boost to the industry. It used to be that it was 25 years back in the 90s, and there have been calls recently for it to be changed to 30 years. Just wondering what you guys think of that. Should it stay as it is? Do you think younger cars should be allowed or not?
Well, I think 40 years is a happy medium, I think. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't think there's an issue there, David. I think 40 years is sort of sensible, I suppose. But having said that, we're all getting old. and they're all getting old, and cars are getting old quicker, it would appear, doesn't it? So maybe, yeah, maybe there's food for thought with reducing down to 30. Yeah, maybe have to rethink on that one.
I think they've got to stand on their own 2 feet, haven't they? Each on their merit, I think, really. And, you know, we buy classic cars and collector's cars because we buy what we can relate to. We buy what Dad had, what Granddad had, what Uncle had. And so I suppose as age groups move on, and I've seen it several times, so I've got the edge on a lot of people. I mean, I can remember when Edwardian cars went off the market for almost overnight for no reason whatsoever, but all of a sudden you woke up one morning and there was nobody out there to buy Edwardian cars. We've seen the same thing with pre-war cars. I'm very pleased there's been a little bit of a resurgence on pre-war cars. We've noticed that.
Yeah, very much.
Because, I mean, a year ago, you know, it was pretty well doom and gloom.
Well, it has been for like 10, 15 years.
It has been for a good number of years, yeah. But it sort of came to a head about a year, 18 months ago, in my opinion. And we were particularly sick because in our collection we've got a lot of pre-war cars. And you've seen the prices slide and go down the Swanee. I mean, motorbikes, I've been unloading a load of my motorbikes and I'm getting maybe a third of what I could have got 5 or 6 or 10 years ago. I mean, Gold Stars, I mean, you wouldn't have parted with a Gold Star less than 20 grand 10 years ago. They're now like 10 grand. But it's all market-led. You know, it's just the fact that we haven't got a buyer for them, that's all it is.
Why do you think that people are getting back into pre-war cars again? Do you think it's like the VSCC, or do you think it's something
I don't know what it is. I think it's predominantly my age group, really, and I think, yeah, it could be value. Value is obviously going to be, yeah, a contributing factor because they are good value for money. And I think it's also to do with, yeah, I think you tend to, you look back, and then you look back a bit more. The simplicity with them and the mechanical, you know, behind them, I think starts to become appealing. You know, when you just get out with so many electrical issues, I know you haven't got to go right the way back to that, I know that, but yeah, it's just, I think it's just, they're just value probably, Paul. Yeah, I think you probably got to think
more than anything, it will be value. They just look terrific value, don't they?
And
you know, let's be fair, a lot of them are rod brakes and things, as I think Father mentioned yesterday. So you can leave them all winter, and off you go come springtime. You haven't got sticky wheel cylinders and all the rest of it, have you? You know, they're arguably easier to run in many respects.
Yeah, true.
But I think it's really value, isn't it? You know, the few that come on the market at the moment, or were doing, were terrific value. Terrific.
Yeah, I feel that the feedback I get, I talk to people every day, as you can imagine, mostly down at Thornton Down, and they say things like, I can't believe the price of Escorts. Can't understand it. The last Escort they sold was 175 quid, and it was a good car, tax and MOT, and they just can't get their head around it. And then, as the lads have said, you know, you stand that Escort now, which is now, depends what model it is, obviously, but even a nice 2-door Mark 1 Escort Olympic Blue or something like that in nice condition, you're talking about towards 10 grand, don't you? Silly money, really. And then you stand something, you know, like a nice little Morris 10-4 or something alongside it, a beautiful, stunning little car that you can buy at 5.5, 6 grand. There's no comparison, really, and I think even the younger guys out there are realising that, which is where the value for money thing comes in, and it might have just G'd up the guys that are on the turn, you know, that they're not like Escort men, but they're not pre-war men, but, you know, they realise it and think, you know, I think maybe it's a good idea to get one of them, and they are actually
my age group that are doing it.
Yeah, I would think
I think they just fancy something just different and older, just to go down the village on a Friday or Saturday night or wherever it might be. Yeah, I think it's my age group that's just starting to look back onto that period of production. I think so.
And it's interesting actually, because when I was watching the auction yesterday, I think Derek, you made a very good point actually, which is around things like Fords and Land Rovers, saying that actually we talked about sort of the market price stopping. You were saying that actually cars like Fords and Land Rovers, they are actually immune to that trend, and so there are actually some good deals out there to be found.
Yeah, there is. But with Fords and Land Rovers, I can't get on with Land Rovers. I'm ever so sorry, lads. I admire you, lads. You got heart like a football when you start messing around with Land Rovers. There's a Series 1 over there. Bloke showed me some pictures of it yesterday, broke in half. And I know you can get a new chassis for a Land Rover, so no big deal, I don't suppose. But he put some work into that. You see it over there now, it's a Minter. But Land Rovers, oh man, I just can't get into them really. They're just too agricultural for me. And in the days when we dealt with them, you know, they were always going wrong, you know, with gearbox problems and all the rest of it, and hubs and all that sort of thing, and we're all getting fed up with it. And then what happened? The Japs come on the market, didn't they, with Toyotas and Nissan Patrols, and just cleaned it all up, didn't they? And
Fords,
quite
right.
rightly so. You can't blame them for doing it. But what's the other one? The Fords. The
Yeah,
Fords.
things like Escorts, Capri, that sort of thing.
It's a daft, isn't it, really? But I just found over the years that the cars that were plentiful in their day are the rare ones now. We didn't look after them, I suppose, because there was Escorts for sale on every street corner. No one thought too much about Escorts. Then all of a sudden they went, and now we're thinking, oh blimey, we didn't keep too many of them. So I think that's what's happened that way.
And obviously the auction, very, very well sort of attended yesterday. There were lots of people I could see sticking their hands up, right where you guys are standing now. And what I was wondering is, if you've never bought a classic car before, particularly at auction, what would your top tips be for someone who might want to take part in one of your auctions for the first time?
Top tip, really, get in the car, come down, have a look, do your homework really, but most importantly, come down and have a look at, certainly if it's a car you're looking at, come down and have a look at the car with your own eyes. Don't leave it to us. We do our photos, we do our videos. The videos, I think some of you think the videos are a substitution for you to come and have a look. In actual fact, they're there to help you decide whether to travel and have a look. But yeah, really, in a nutshell, get off the sofa and come up and have a look. That's my top tip.
We touched on this yesterday, didn't we, David? And you can see two very similar cars, can't you? One with a price tag of 6, one with a price tag of 12. You've just got to go out there and just see what the market's doing, I think. You've just got to have that bit of time. Go and look at 2 or 3 or 4, whatever it might be, as we said yesterday, MGBs, Morris Minors, whatever. Just see what you get for your money. See why that one's 3,000 and see why that one's 6,000. And then work out where you need to be, whether you need 6,000 or whether you don't need 6,000. There's no substitution for going and viewing. And as you touched on, it's just strange today, ladies and gentlemen, because we're sort of repeating a little bit of what we said yesterday, aren't we? But I feel like but you were saying yesterday about the fact that you packed up in 1980, whatever, because of misdescribed cars and prices that were going all wonky, weren't they? And there's no substitution for going to look.
You've got to go and have a look, definitely. And also we found over the years is that, and we were a bit sort of clever with this, I think, some time ago, or thought we were clever. We weren't clever at all. And then, because, you get a little bit fed up, as I say, with people keep wasting your time. And people would come in and they say, oh, I fancy a classic. And you'd say, well, what do you fancy? Well, I don't know. I said, well, do you want a saloon or a sports car? Well, I don't know. What do you want to like 30s, 50s, 60s, 70s? What do you think? I don't know. And a lot of the time they actually don't know. They might have 3 or 4 cars in mind, but they don't really know what they want. And the times that we see guys come along with a car in mind, they come and look at a Vauxhall Victor, an F-Type Victor 1960, and they go away with a 1939 Vauxhall 14. You just don't know until you see them. But it's one of them things, you know what you want when you see it. So the answer is come and see it.
Absolutely. One of the things that I found as well is that when people buy cars, sometimes you'll find like the taller gentleman will go and buy a sports car and he doesn't fit. You can't get comfortable behind the wheel, so you can't really get that unless you go and physically look at it.
You started something now, David. Hang on a minute. Go on.
Oh, that is my pet hate, that really is. These old boys, they come in, they're like, they say, I'm 6'7", So you ain't. You might have been 6'7" at one time. You're now 6'2", but you're still too big for that MGB. No, I know. If I can get in, I'll be all right. They can't get in. They can't get in. I say to them that you're wasting your time. Go and buy a 3-litre Rover where you got no instepping. You just slide your legs in, nice and careful. And so we get a bit of that, yeah, we do. But we're all living in the past, aren't we? We've got a lot of past behind us, and we've not too much future. So you can only actually live in the past, and we live in dreams. We're looking back with rose-tinted glasses all the time, and we have like this Austin 7 thing I was talking about yesterday. And I remember one guy springs to mind about Austin 7, and he said, we went away on honeymoon in Austin 7, me and her, and he said, I fancy another one now. And I said, well, very nice, isn't it? But, you're now 78-year-old and all the rest of it. And are you sure? Because, you've been driving lovely Hondas and BMWs and we had a wonderful time on honeymoon with Austin 7. Oh, man. And I'm thinking you had a lovely time on honeymoon no matter what you went away in, weren't you? Didn't have to be Austin 7. And sure enough, a fortnight later he rings up and said, I made a mistake. But the trouble is, when they make a mistake like that, it's a bit of a job to pull them back onto the track. And so instead of like investing to me in the first place and said buy a Mark 1 console, and it goes and buys it. So be very careful. Come and have a look. Think about it just a little bit. Get a little bit of advice. Talk to someone like us. We'll tell you honestly. You know, we're not here to sell you something. We're here to hand it over, but we're not going to sell you cars. We don't do that anymore. You know, we'll tell you honestly what we think. Whether you take that advice is entirely up to you, but we can only offer it.
You've got a week goes by that we go, one of us, all of us, probably.
Did you let yourself one or did you use your own one?
Honestly, I wouldn't. Honestly, I wouldn't. And or get a phone call. Probably a regular face that we've seen around. You know, maybe made the odd purchase or something, and they'll ring up and they'll say, lot number, whatever it might be. And I'll say, what's that? And they'll say, whatever it might be. TR4. And you say, hang on a minute, I'll ring you back.
Who's just been saying electric cars don't work, they're not going to work.
Then they say, don't you want to sell me it?
Oh, yeah. You know,
That's why you should support Air Ambulance. You just don't know when you're going to want it, do you?
No, exactly.
That's what they say. They say, don't they? They say you don't want to sell me that car. What's the matter with you, don't they?
Yeah, well, they do at times. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, you can't.
But we turn people off rather than. Well, we turn people off as much as we turn people on. So if someone comes along and interested in something else, and it's lovely, we will say it's a lovely thing. Honestly, the car is absolutely bang on. It's a lovely thing. You will not go far wrong. If we're not quite comfortable with something, we'll say that. You know, and like I say, it's not uncommon, you know, for all of us. There was a guy about to put a bid on the car a few weeks back. So we have the main auction, and then anything that's left over goes into a timed auction, David. So 3/4 of them or thereabouts will sell under the hammer on the first auction, and then it goes into a timed auction, which gives obviously everybody, the car, the vendor, the buyers, another opportunity to buy. So it was a case like that where someone had run, they were just about to pay for a car, and I just happened to be in the office, and I took the call. The girls were all busy on the phones because it's always busy, and I just picked the phone up, blah blah, and I said, I'm not familiar with it, let me go and have a look. So I walked over up to what we call Unit 3, walked up there, had a look round it, rung him back, and I said, I'm not comfortable on sending this down to you. So I said, you come up and have a look, and if it's okay, if it meets your standard, then great. But I am not going to send that car down to you, he was down in the country, on the basis that I say it's right. I said it's not good enough for that. But it might be good enough for you. Come and have a look.
It's the way to do it.
So
And not being rude. What's your name? James. From Ireland?
If it is field, let me know, right?
From Ireland. Is she with you?
If there's two, let me know, yeah?
Not yet.
Well, look, we're going back with him. With the greatest of respect, James down here from Ireland, with the greatest of respect, there's not a lot of point me selling him an Austin Ely for a guy Sprite, is there? Let's be fair. Because you ain't going to get in and out of it, you're going to be upset and all the rest of it.
Unless he wants to polish it.
That's what we mean. We can only offer the advice.
Right.
Whether people take it is entirely up to them. But we try and be honest and straightforward about it. By telling the guy honestly, this ain't the car for you. We're not making money, are we? We're not doing it for money. We're just doing it because I think that's the way it should be.
That's where the enthusiast comes over, isn't it?
Yeah, no, agreed. Yeah. No, there's cars that you can sell confidently over the phone with a photograph, etc. And there's cars that you don't want to, isn't there? Which is about what you're saying.
I am. It's also down to the fact there's different levels of expectation, there's different levels of standards and everything, and what might be absolutely fine for me won't suit you, and vice versa. So that's where. But if you're at the bottom with a restoration project, that's fine, isn't it? You can't really misdescribe a box of bits. No, that's right. And you can't really misdescribe, a lovely 22,000 mile, never been restored Vauxhall Viva. You cannot really describe it. It's that middle bit, that band, that you've just got to be real careful with, Dave, just to make sure they meet people's expectations.
Yeah, we touched on this yesterday actually we were talking about the importance of condition, particularly unrestored condition. So, and that's a really important part. If you're looking at a classic car and not buying it, that's a really key element of what you should be looking for.
There's two types of vehicle, two conditions of vehicle out there that are easier. One is that wants a full restoration, that's straightforward, that's self-explanatory, and the other one that is totally concours and mint. It's the stuff in between that's awkward. One man's meat's another man's poison, and all you can do is describe it as accurately as you see it, and then advise them, as the lads have said, come up and have a look and see if you agree with that. And 9 times out of 10, we'll describe a car to a guy and he said, I think I'll come and have a look. It's good, come and have a look. And he comes and have a look, and what does he say? Better than I expect.
Yeah, better than I thought. Yeah, we never do the other way. We never over-describe a car. The last thing I'm going to do is drag someone up from Peterborough, isn't it, to look at a car, and then him come into the office and say, "Bloody hell, what car were you looking at?" You know, honestly, it's the other way round. It's the other way round. It's the flip when they come up and they say, "Yeah, it's fine, it's great, I love it."
I've encouraged them to do exactly the same as I've done over the years. I used to, in 1974, for argument's sake, I'd trade 14, 15 cars a week to different dealers, week in, week out, month in, month out, same guys, constantly. So that tells you something.
Absolutely, and the other thing we were talking about yesterday was history as well, which yeah, it can make a difference. But I know when we were talking about it yesterday, yeah, it's probably not as big a thing as condition. Would you guys still maintain that?
Yeah, well, again, Dave handled this one nicely yesterday, yeah, and he said if all the docks line up, if all the docks all join up to matching engine number, gearbox number, and all the rest of it, brilliant, great. Does it really matter? More important, really, what you see there today, because that's what you're buying. You're not buying where it was last year or 15 years ago.
I think it's like the suitcases.
Yeah.
Did you go out and buy a very average car with a suitcase full of paperwork, and then you have it on display over there, and then you say, yeah, so I know it's only fairly average, but look at the paperwork. I've got a suitcase full of paperwork here. Or do you have a lovely car with a logbook and an MOT? Personally, I'd have a logbook. I'd have a car with a logbook and an MOT. A nice car. Yeah, if it, like you say, as Paul touched on there again, if all the dots line up, suitcase with the paperwork, lovely car, off you go, isn't it? But I think the emphasis is going to be on what you're buying there. That today, what that looks like today. As Paul said again there, what it looked like 5 years ago is sort of irrelevant, really, isn't it? It's there today, not over there. So yeah, it's on condition, David, I think.
Those dots don't often line up, actually, do they?
They don't, unfortunately. No, they don't.
And the funniest thing we find is that a guy come in with like a modernist car. We somehow, I don't know why we do it, but we sort of got into selling a lot of Land Rovers, haven't we, and stuff like that.
Well, between us, we've probably got 7 or 8 Land Rovers.
Yeah,
so we're Land Rover,
aren't we?
we're Team Land Rover.
Well, that's
Obviously,
probably
it works
the
out
reason.
strong.
But, yeah, so people bring them along, don't they, all the time? And we do sell them, don't we? So it's a couple here and there, I think. So we do sell it, so that's great, my motto will never say no, and get them in, rather earn a quid out of something than not at all. And but then they're funny, it's quite comical. You'd laugh if you were there behind the counter sometimes. They come in with this Range Rover and how many miles it done, 120,000 miles or whatever it might be, and but it's been looked after. I've looked after this car. I've spent a fortune on this car. Never been any trouble. I've never been a bit of trouble, but I've spent a fortune on it, maintaining it and the rest of it, and it's got a pile of invoices like this, totaling up to, 30 grand. And I said, ain't been a lot of trouble then? No, it's never been any bother at all. Well, what you got all them invoices for? I'd rather see 2 service invoices, wouldn't you, over it and that, with no trouble at all.
You'd rather see a Toyota badge.
I'd rather, yeah. We do laugh. We hear some funny things, honestly.
Talking about the dot sign, one dot that I often see on cars advertised for sale is classic cars having voluntary MOTs, and this is obviously, for the last few years, obviously cars over 40 years old, you don't have to legally MOT them anymore.
No.
Some people do, some people don't take them for MOTs. How important do you think that is when a car's coming up for sale? Does it add value?
On a personal note, I think everything on that road out there should have an MOT, a safety check, call it what you will. I think that's a step backwards, personally. I think cars, trailers, everything on that highway should have an annual inspection of some sort. So for me, I think it's a massive bit of peace of mind, really, when you're looking at buying something. If somebody has continued and MOT'd it, that gives you some peace of mind and comfort. That's the word, yeah. So yeah, for me, if there was 2 cars advertised, one with MOT, one without, certainly as a private guy buying a car, maybe not that great at mechanics and all the rest of it, I would always emphasise the one with an MOT.
Yeah, I'm with Paul on that. I get the call and say, is it worth me MOT? I didn't MOT it last year, and obviously I haven't got to. And I'll say, yeah, because if it's okay, it's going to cost you 50 quid in it to MOT it. If it's as good as you say it is, that's all it's going to cost you. And then 50 quid is going to put 500 quid onto the price. Yeah. So
open up the market.
Yeah, we go. Well, they're both around in glove.
I'll blow the gaff now, I'll tell you now. I'm not name dropping and what have you, but I'm very fortunate to be part of the Westminster Club, Classic Car Club down there. So I'm very fortunate I have dinner down there, once a year at least. And I'm very often sat next to the Transport Minister. who knows nothing about transport. Complete and absolute waste. I've never met one yet that's got any brains. And I was sitting there this particular night, and I said to him about MOTs. There's a new thing coming out whereby your first MOT is going to be 4 years old. He said, yeah, it'll be fine, won't it? I said, no, it won't be fine, will it? I said, what are you going to do about white transits then? The man in the transit, he's doing like 60,000 miles a year. So the first time he gets an MOT, an independent inspection, he's going to have done 240,000 miles. And his answer was, the manufacturers tell me it'll stand it. Now what a load of old cars. How are they going to guarantee the tyres are going to be any good after 240,000 and all the rest of it? You know, even assuming it's going to be maintained, which let's face it, a lot of them running about, you know as well as I do, a lot of these vans running around, these white vans and these lads delivering parcels every day, they're not maintained, are they? Look alright, a death trap, most of them. So that's the sort of thing. But the main reason they stopped MOT on classic cars, I tell you, it's no big favour. Look how good we are, look how nice we are, look how much we support the classic car industry. They couldn't give a toss about the classic car industry, although it brings in an absolute fortune, like millions. And well, look how much it's bringing in now. There's VAT on most of this here today. Look how much it's going to bring into the government now. But the main reason they stopped MOT on old cars is because they couldn't MOT them. They couldn't meet the criteria with the new EEC rules. Don't start me on that one. With all the
You're on it already, aren't you?
with all the emissions and all the rest of it. Best thing we done got out of that bloody club, wasn't it? But with all the emissions and all the rest of it, they can't meet it. And a bloke said to me in the government, he said, how can I expect a 22-year-old MOT tester, because that's what the MOT testers are, aren't they? 22, 24-year-old. He's never seen a pre-war car. How can he be expected to test it, you know, like logically? And so that's the reason. It's nothing to do with doing you a favour. It's the fact they can't do it. And what they should do, and Paul's right, what he said, they should do a basic MOT. Brakes, steering, lights, suspension, if you
like
like,
what we do with
tyres.
the truck, the safety inspection.
Absolutely, a safety inspection, the best word to put it, and then everyone's happy, you know. But a little bit of give and take, you know. The fact that a Vauxhall Victor, FB Victor's got 3/8 of play in the bottom joint, you know, most of you lot out there don't know that. But so you can put a new joint on a bottom joint on an FB Victor. A brand new joint, and it's still got 3/8 play. So you've got to have a little bit of give and take there. But that's another reason why they can't test them. You know, it can't be done.
Just a minute though, the Transport Minister just wants a quick word with you. Just
I
down
don't care
there.
who he is.
Yeah, interaction in a minute.
Tell him he was a chump. I'll tell you that night, particularly. Yeah, they're all chumps. I'll tell you honestly. I ain't got a lot of time for any of them.
Incidentally, we're going to get an invite now, are you?
Where are you going in November?
I might not go again.
I don't think you've got that choice, mate, to be honest with you. I think someone else is going to make that play.
They all know it.
Yeah. So you found obviously you know, a car that has a voluntary MOT, is in really good nick, it runs really well. How much do you guys think it actually costs to get into the classic car hobby to have a really good running? Because you don't need 100 grand for an E-Type, do you?
If I had 100 grand to spend on the classic car, I wouldn't spend 100 grand on the classic car. There's absolutely no need whatsoever. Another conversation I have all the time is, yeah, you'd have as much fun with that at 3,000 quid as you will with that at 103,000. More fun. And Dad touched on this yesterday. At least that £3,000 Morris Minor, MGB, whatever it might be, you're going to go out, you're going to use it, you're going to have some fun with it, you're going to enjoy it. The £103,000 one, you can't leave, can you? Not really. You go out in it, you stay in it, so you leave your house, you drive out, you stay in it, don't you? All the time. You park up, you send the missus for an ice cream while you're guarding the car. She comes back, she then drops the ice cream, you then fall out and have a row, don't you? Because all the rest, and then you go home, don't you? Thoroughly all fed up, put it back in the garage, and you can't wait to do it next Sunday. So, whereas the MGB, you just go, don't you? You go out, you have some fun, you use it, the clubs are great, and you come to places like this, and it's brilliant. Yeah, so, no, you don't need a lot. And when I'm auctioneering, and Father the same, something will come on, I don't know what it might be, anything, and you think, look at this, value for money, and there it is, it's making 2,800 quid, what a cheap way into our movement, really, isn't it? And, you know, 2,800 quid is not a lot, you spend that on television today, you know, and here we are, you can get into our movement, you know, for very little money, really, David.
I mean, one of the observations I always have is like, you spend how much on cars? And I just turn around and say, well, how much is your season ticket for Liverpool?
Yeah.
That's the thing, isn't it? Because it's cheaper than smoking. It's cheaper than a season ticket for your local club. It's a really good hobby. And the other thing is, obviously, unlike a Liverpool season ticket, you can sell it on again as well.
Yeah, this is what we say. You know, I mean, it's funny. You know, I think of these things when he just said about that, about the usability of a classic car and what have you. I've been there. The prime example. I mean, our Aston, all them years ago, I bought that Aston there, stolen, recovered, smashed up, done it myself, all the rest of it. And we'd go out in it on a Sunday, wherever it might be, down to Brighton Sea or Clacton or something, and there'd be him sat one side in the back seat there, his sister sat the other, and David sat between the two of them with his feet on the rubber mats. I used to say, don't put your feet on that carpet. Keep them feet on the rubber mats and the rest of it.
Feet on the mats,
Yeah.
don't touch the glass.
Don't touch the
sit
glass.
There. That's it.
He's always been trouble. Always trouble.
No, that was to you.
And
that
on the
was
way
not to me.
home, he's right, on the way home, we'd think, well, we're going to stop for something to eat or something. You might pull into a pub and you think, can I see it? If I sit in there, can I see it from the from where I'm sitting in the car park? And then say, no, you'd miss that one. You go somewhere else. So you wind up sitting before you know where you are. You're at home, yeah. And you might go into a cafe or something, fish shop or wherever it might be, and you park the car whereby you can keep an eye on it. You got to look at it. You know, and if anyone gets near it, you're up and having a look, making sure that you're not getting anywhere. Well, I mean, that's lovely. It's good fun. I enjoyed it.